Today, we're unpacking the true nature of human resilience. We're actually going to skip our usual agenda today because I really want to jump straight into a powerful perspective that will completely reframe how we think about success, struggle, and survival. When the whole world is silent, even one voice becomes powerful. Just let those words from Malala Yousafzai sink in for a second. It's an absolutely incredible quote that sets an awe-inspiring emotional tone right out of the gate. And it perfectly sets the stage for the deeply human stories and, well, the really fascinating structural analysis we're about to explore together. Section 1. Icons of Extreme Adversity. Unbreakable Spirits. Let's dive right into this by looking at some of the most recognizable figures in modern history who stared down impossible hardships and just absolutely refused to be broken. Think about Malala's incredibly rapid and, frankly, dangerous rise. She went from being an anonymous 11-year-old girl bravely speaking out against the Taliban's oppression in Pakistan to surviving a literal gunshot to the head on her school bus at age 15. But instead of silencing her, that attack amplified her voice globally, and she ultimately won the Nobel Peace Prize at just 17 years old. It's almost unbelievable. And she's part of this broader tapestry of historical determination. Just look at these micro-narratives. Nelson Mandela endured 27 brutal years in prison, yet emerged not with a desire for revenge, but with the resolve to peacefully dismantle apartheid. Wilma Rudolph was told she would never, ever walk again due to childhood polio, but she flat out refused to listen, eventually winning 3 Olympic gold medals. And Louis Zamperini, he survived a plane crash, 47 grueling days lost at sea, and years of unbearable POW torture, ultimately turning his immense pain into a life dedicated to helping others find peace. But equally compelling is the unique resilience of theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking. Imagine being diagnosed with motor neuron disease at the incredibly young age of 21. He faced the terrifying prospect of total creeping paralysis. Yet he was fiercely reluctant to accept nursing care, fighting tooth and nail to maintain his independence. And despite his severe physical limitations, his mind soared, right? He continued this groundbreaking work in cosmology that completely reshaped our understanding of the universe. But beyond the science, which is amazing enough, he also became a fierce global advocate. He argued passionately that people with disabilities should never be discriminated against and absolutely must have the assistance they need to thrive. These stories are breathtaking for sure, but they also force us to ask a really critical question, one that requires a bit of a tonal pivot for our explainer today. Is individual grit and hard work really all it takes to succeed? Section 2. The Self-Made Myth. Analyzing the narrative. To answer that question, we're going to look at a fascinating critical analysis from the Harvard Kennedy School examining the parable of the self-made man. Now, you've likely heard sentiments exactly like this before. Billionaire Larry Ellison once said, "Everyone who works hard has the opportunity to make almost anything possible." The Harvard text highlights how this perfectly illustrates a pervasive media narrative, the idea that success is universally available to anyone, anywhere, if you just put in the elbow grease. And this brilliantly illustrates the paradigm shift the Harvard researchers are proposing. They contrast the popular myth that effort alone equals success with a much more complex reality. The reality is that true achievement, while obviously requiring hard work, absolutely depends on having the opportunity to exert that effort in the first place, along with vital structural and societal support. It's like a 3-legged stool. You need all 3 pieces. Section 3. Survivorship Bias, the Reality of Success. Let's see how this builds into the Harvard text's deconstruction of that classic rags to riches narrative. The key to unpacking this whole thing is understanding survivorship bias. This is a logical error where we focus only on the winners of a system, the billionaires, the celebrity CEOs, while completely ignoring the tens of millions of people who worked just as hard with just as much grit but didn't succeed. The media loves a billionaire underdog story, but by only looking at the survivors, we become entirely blind to the systemic barriers holding equally hardworking people back. The Harvard text asserts that the reality of making it actually relies heavily on chance. It depends on being born in the right neighborhood, stumbling upon the right mentors, or just catching a lucky break. And perhaps most provocatively, the researchers offer a fascinating postulate here. Laziness is uniformly distributed across all income levels, meaning the incidence of laziness among the rich is literally exactly the same as it is among the poor. Lack of success is rarely just a lack of effort. Section 4. Power of Community. Everyday Heroes. So, if it's not just solo grit, what really sustains us? Let's bring this down to earth. Take a look at LV Brown. We're using a workbook from the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence here as our guide. LV has lived with the debilitating condition of multiple sclerosis for over 50 years, yet her outlook is striking. My life is full and it is good. How? Well, she hasn't done this by stubbornly grinding away in isolation. She maintains a beautifully full life because she relies on careful organization and, most importantly, the resources and support of her community. Then there's the tragic but ultimately uplifting story of Elise Morelli. In 1970, a horrific car crash took the lives of her husband and her infant son. Understandably, Elise suffered a severe 2-year nervous breakdown. But she didn't just pull herself up by her bootstraps. Actually, scratch that. She couldn't. She found salvation and healing by connecting with a community organization, the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence, and by redirecting her pain into caring for others. This crucial point is perfectly captured by Tom Millington. Tom's life changed in a fraction of a second after a severe accident left him in chronic pain and highly dependent on others. It is incredibly easy to become consumed by that kind of loss. But Tom eventually found his purpose again, not by isolating himself, but by joining and eventually inspiring a fitness class full of people facing their own severe hurdles. And for folks facing lifelong structural disadvantages, resilience looks exactly like the story of Craig Williams. Craig found stability after a highly turbulent life, not by grinding it out entirely alone on the streets, but through a supportive community housing program. They provided him with his own room, space, and a sense of freedom. As he puts it, everyday resilience requires mateship and a place to call home without the constant fear of being thrown out. Section 5. True Resilience, Redefining the Formula. When we combine the awe-inspiring lessons from our historical icons with the grounded realities of our everyday heroes, a true resilience formula emerges. Yes, it absolutely requires the fierce internal determination of a Stephen Hawking or a Malala, but that internal drive is only half the equation. The other half relies on external structural support, strong community safety nets, the presence of mentors and friends, and a society that actually provides equal access to opportunity rather than just paying lip service to it. True resilience is never a solo endeavor. Which leads me to leave you with this provocative thought. Instead of just praising the self-made myth and judging those who stumble, ask yourself, who is your support system? And more importantly, how are you fostering structural resilience in your own community right now? Because when we build safety nets for each other, we make the impossible possible. Thanks so much for learning with me today.